a.m. in the morning on Tuesday, January the 15th. This is the Energy and Environment Committee. I am going to go through the agenda first, and then we'll make a quick announcement on item number 1. So, if you will, sir.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Rafael Breda with the CLA's office. You have a 5-item agenda. We recommend item number 2 and 3 as consent items.
All right. When we get a quorum, we'll go back and review that.
Certainly. Would you like to start with item number 1?
Why don't we actually see if we can do 4 and 5 quickly, and then we can spend the bulk of our time on item 1.
Certainly. Item number 4, DWP report requesting approval of Third Amendment to an agreement with McBain and Thrush, amount of $925,000 for oversight of the Mono Basin Stream Monitoring Program.
Okay, great. Could I have a quick report on that?
Good morning, Madam Chairman.
I believe this is a time-sensitive item?
It is, yes.
All right.
Bill Kreitz with the CAO's office. The report before you was a DWP request for authorization for the board to enter into a third amendment with the consulting firm of McBain and Thrush for the Mono Basin Stream Restoration Program. It would be a 5-year agreement. It would add an additional $925,645 to the current agreement. And it would be paid fully from the Water Revenue Fund over a 5-year period. Okay. And this item is in response to a Water Quality Board
requirement?
Requirement, that's correct, yes.
Okay. All right. Anything you'd like to add to that?
Good morning, Madam Chair. Basically, this contract is needed, as was stated. It's to comply with the State Water Board Order Decision 1631, as well as Orders 9805, for us to continue having McBain and Thrush to oversee our restoration activities.
All right. And is the city making positive progress towards achieving the historic water levels of, I guess it was 1941 as required by the regional water quality?
We're moving toward that end. It of course depends on the type of year we have and so forth. Basically how it works is that we have a few years of good, that water level increases by 2-4 feet. Okay. And then we have drops after that a little bit.
Okay. We don't have a quorum, so we can have to do this without. Yeah, let's hold it and see if everybody gets here. If not, we'll just move it forward to council without recommendation. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great. Item number 5.
Item number 5, DWP report requesting authority to sell 18 excess parcels located in the towns of Independence, Big Pine, and Laws in Inyo County. Staff from DWP and CAO.
Okay, good. Okay.
Good morning. Craig Luna, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. This is for 18 parcels in the Owens Valley that under the long-term water agreement, we are part of a larger 75-acre commitment the City of Los Angeles has made under that agreement stipulated. We are proceeding with the sale of these excess parcels.
Okay.
And we'll be conducting a public auction. We're establishing the minimum bid prices for these 18 parcels, and we believe we'll be able to conduct the auction sometime in early spring.
Okay, great. Are any of these properties that are being sold vital to any water operations?
No, they're not. They were reviewed and then analyzed by our staff, and then they are considered to be surplus to our needs.
Any questions? No. All right, we still don't have a quorum, so we'll hold on this. Okay, so that's 4, 5. So now we can jump back to 1. And I'm going to ask for the presentation to be made today. I am going to hold this in committee, and I received enough emails and phone calls, and I know that this is a very, very, very major, dramatic shift in our thinking as a city, and I think it's a wonderful thing. But for procedural reasons and things such as that, like, I guess I should just say it, given the way things are going with the industrial land use policy and people's anger and feeling that they've been not given a full depth and breadth of an opportunity to participate in putting their public opinion and discussion on the record, I'm going to have at least one more meeting after this, and I'd ask you guys if you can, even if we need to have one special meeting with nothing else but this on here, even if we have to do, just a special meeting and just dedicate 2-3 hours and just make sure that everybody who wants to comment on this has a chance to comment on it. This experience with the industrial land use policy has been so negative that I'm not interested in perpetuating that type of public hearing process. So I want to make sure that this is hugely inclusive and everybody has a chance to comment and talk about all sorts of permutations. I'm having been now on the receiving end of being cut out of a public process, I know how it feels. I'm not willing to do that myself. So, with that in mind, if we could commence with the presentation, and then we have a number of speakers who I will call up after we have our presentation. And if you can be mindful that we do have to go to council at 10.
Okay. Good morning. It's Claire Bowen, Department of City Planning. We do have a presentation about 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll allow time for
And we have some
questions.
speakers, too.
Right.
And also remember, we will not be voting on this today.
Right.
So this is not going to be the last time we discuss it.
Right. I think it is worth taking, though, a few minutes just to kind of lay out the program. It has definitely been kind of evolving over the last year, and so there have been some changes, and I think it helps clarify any questions or concerns. I wanted to just basically just first of all just start with saying a huge thanks to really everyone who's in the audience today who has been participating in the development of this program over the last year. One of the things I think we're very excited about with this program is we feel like it really has established a balance. It's not everything to everybody, and that everybody comes to this program with different perspectives and interests, but we think we really created a balance and a foundation for which the city can begin to start achieving and continue to achieve its goals around energy conservation and water conservation and improved air quality. So I'm going to first turn this over to Walker Wells, who from Global Green, who has been our partner in developing this, and then we'll move forward.
Thanks, Claire, and good morning, everyone. In developing this program, one of the places that we started was looking at the city's goals that are already stated relative to the environment. We looked at places like the city's general plan, the mayor's Green LA Action Plan, and found a series of already identified goals, many of which the city's already working on, related to site planning and mobility. This could be density around transit stations, water conservation, energy and climate change. City has a climate action plan. Use of materials, promoting recycling of construction
Can I
materials.
stop you for 1 second? Just 1 second, hold on. My colleague has joined us also, Mr. Cardenas. We now have a quorum. Okay. We were holding everything on the desk, and Mr. Cardenas, we jumped back to item 1 since that's a major item of the day. The report just came out last night. We're not voting on it today anyway. I had stated to the public that given the way the collection and gathering of information on the industrial land use policy has been so raucous and unruly, I certainly wasn't willing to repeat that with this. I got too many emails yesterday, people wanting to participate in giving their input. So we're not going to vote on this today. They're about to make their presentation. But if you wouldn't mind on the other items, if we could just go back and vote on them so they can move forward.
When you are. Certainly. Item number 2, consent. Item number 3, consent as well. Item number 4 and 5,
Objection.
approvals.
Okay. Approval?
Okay.
All right, we're okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we sort of dove into starting the program. We looked at the city's pre-existing goals relative to the environment and found the things that you can see listed up here relative to site, water, energy, materials, improve public health. What's interesting is that many of these, we need to stop again?
No, you're okay. We already approved everything, so keep going.
Great. Many of these overlap well with the categories of green building, which are generally considered to be site, water, energy, materials, and indoor environmental quality. And so some of our effort was just to say, what's there? How does it relate to this green building undertaking? And long story short, we found that there was already a lot there, and our effort was to really create synergies between those existing items and then fill in some gaps relative to what the city already had going on. The other thing that we did was conduct a whole lot of outreach and tried to really listen to the development community, the building community, the design community, and hear what they were experiencing in the process of developing and building buildings at all, just in the first place, and then to listen to what their experiences had been to date relative to green building. And so starting in March, we conducted 8 focus groups. And these were structured around different building types: single-family residential, multifamily, industrial, mixed use. We looked at some urban design issues. And in that process, we had about, over 200 companies and organizations that were represented, from the AIA, the LA Chamber, the Building Industry Association, I could rattle off this long, long list. We had representatives from the developers, banks, land use law firms, so on and so forth, throughout that process. One interesting note is that we never saw it tail off. We had as many people at the 8th meeting as we had at the first meeting, so there was a lot of interest and momentum around this topic. That was followed by 2 stakeholder workshops or public workshops, both of which were hosted by DWP at their headquarters, one in June and then one in October. Each of those had about 150 attendees. And at those instances, we basically said, here's the program as it stands to date, tell us what you think. Concurrent with all of that, we had meetings weekly with a group of sort of interdepartmental representatives from planning, building and safety, public works, housing, redevelopment agency, and a number of other departments, sort of running an external process and an internal process concurrently. All of that has led to the program that we're sort of talking about today, which has 3 main components. And the first component is sort of an administrative component, a structural component called the Green Team, which will consist of members from relative city departments. Their job will be to do support public outreach, support staff training, but probably most importantly to review the city's existing codes and identify opportunities to either make them greener, create improvements, or remove barriers for people doing green if those are in place, and to sort of continually sort of put suggestions for greener codes into the hopper, whether that's through the Planning Commission or the Public Works Commission or Building and Safety Commission, to prepare an annual report card on how we're doing generally with green building. And then there are these 2 other components. I don't want to get ahead of myself because this is Claire's part. So the other components are a basic standard of sustainability, and then there's a standard of sustainable excellence. And so those are the 3 main components of the program. Now I'll pass it off to Claire to go through it in a little more detail.
Great, thank you, Walker. I'm going to start with the Green Building Team because I think it really is the foundation of this program, and I think it's really one of the things that
And just,
really
I want to
makes it-
reflect for the record that Mr. Alarcon and Ms. Gruhl are here, so now we have a full committee.
Great, thank you. But this is the process by which the Green Building Program will allow its to coordinate it and to allow it really to kind of build into the future. That we're establishing a program today that we know 10 years from now might look very different because, as we know, new materials are coming in board, new technologies are coming in place. We want to create a program that can allow for that fluidity, can accommodate a program that balances the needs of the city of Los Angeles. So really, it's a team that includes all the different departments that are listed there. We've also had interest from the county and from folks like Southern California Gas and LAUSD for participating as well. What we heard during a lot of the focus groups was that there are a lot of codes, as Walker mentioned, that are already right now impediments to building green. We know that gray water, for example, is one in particular, and so the Green Building Team becomes an opportunity to bring all the departments together. We already, as a city, are doing a lot to build green, but it's happening in kind of ad hoc fashion within different departments, and the Green Building Team provides that opportunity for that continued collaboration to bring all the departments together and really to be able to work things out and resolve things. One of the other components of the Green Building Team that we're recommending is it also becomes a public interface. It provides an opportunity for the public on a monthly basis to come to the Green Building Team and share with them, again, the codes that they're running into problems with, things that they need to have worked out to be able to move forward with some of the green things they want to do. It's also going to be constantly looking at the kind of codes we have in place and see how we as a city can improve our performance on energy and water conservation. I imagine the team, again, at the council's direction, will be looking at a host of codes, again, ongoing into the future. And this allows us to put a program together that can be not only looking at how large projects can perform and improve sustainability, but also how small projects and how perhaps even existing buildings that we have today, since they represent a large part of our stock and obviously contribute a lot to, again, greenhouse emissions, so that obviously looking at codes that are in place today that are incentive programs that we can look to help those buildings also be greener becomes that through that process. Walker also mentioned the annual report card, and I think that's an important part of the Green Buildings team. And again, because they become this central place where all the information kind of gets gathered, they become a way for the city to really monitor all the different kinds of things that are going on. So we're going to be able to come back to you, on a yearly basis and say, X number of homes were built at this level of green, these new codes were put in place, and this helped us reduce our water by X number of gallons, or we reduced our energy consumption by X because of all the new buildings and all the new codes we had in place. So it becomes a way, again, for the city to really be able to monitor how it's doing, and again, help it then set further thresholds for the future in terms of how we want to perform. One of the things that we also want to do with the annual report card is working in conjunction with the mayoral award program that I know the mayor is interested in doing to really recognize green design and construction. There are a lot of different programs that are out there, and we want to be able to use an award program with the report card to really acknowledge all the different kinds of efforts that are going out there, whether somebody's doing a single-family home or participate, through the BIA's program or through the Greenpoint Rated. We want to be able to acknowledge those projects and have them recognized for the city, and also as a way of counting them towards the kind of the efforts that those are doing. The last two pieces of the green building team become an opportunity to coordinate education for our staff. We recognize that a big part of green building is helping people understand what it means. Oftentimes there's a reluctance to kind of go down that path because people often don't know what it means. And that's true of a lot of our building staffs and our city planning staffs and engineering. And we want to take advantage of an education process that allows all of our different staffs who will be integrating with the public during this program to really understand what it means, and that has a lot to do with helping move this program forward. Public outreach is another huge component which we recognize. We have obviously many constituents who deal with building, whether you're an architect, whether you're a civil engineer, whether you're a homeowner, whether you're the developer. And again, the green building team can then help coordinate in partnership with all the different organizations and agencies that exist in the city. We can work with the AIA and the BIA and business organizations in the chamber to help spread the message and help people be aware of the benefits of green building and how their homes and their businesses are going to save energy, and people are going to feel better when they're in those buildings. So that's kind of in summary is the green building team. I'm going to move next on to the two standards that Walker talked about. We do have two standards we're recommending. One is a mandatory requirement, which is the standard of sustainability. The second one is the standard of sustainable excellence, which is a voluntary program. So I'm going to focus first on the mandatory component of the program. It's perhaps the most controversial part of this program we're recommending. So the standard of sustainability says that we think for large projects in this city, which are about 200 plus a year, they, because they're large, obviously have a greater impact on our environment and have an opportunity to set a leadership role in moving their building forward in a more sustainable way. So we've decided to say that any project that is what we're calling low-rise residential, so if you're 6 stories or less and you're 50 units, that you would have to be meet the intent of LEED at a certified level. The other components of it are obviously high-rise residential and non-residential buildings, 50,000 square feet. So 50,000 square feet and 50 units are kind of our thresholds that we're recommending that be the requirement for those projects to meet LEED at a certified level. We're recommending that requirement be effective as of July 1st for the high-rise residential and the non-residential, and that it be January 1st for the requirement to roll out for the low-rise residential.
Do you know when LEED is?
We've spent a lot of time, obviously, over the last year really kind of flushing out this program. And one of the things I wanted to share with you this morning is the LEED program in general, and also talk to you about why we're not actually requiring people to be certified. If you're familiar with the United States Green Building Council's LEED program, typically you get certified well after you get your building permit here in the city. And we recognized, obviously, in conversations with building and safety that we really have our last opportunity to interface with that project at the point they're getting their building permit. So that's why we're saying it's the intent of LEED certified. We're not actually asking you to go and get certified. We're also not asking you to actually register with the United States Green Building Council. We are asking you, though, to bring a LEED accredited professional onto your team. And the standard of sustainable excellence is it's a voluntary program, and it's really open to any project, small and large, who voluntarily wants to pursue and register with LEED to pursue a silver certification. So that in that case, we're saying because you're voluntarily going after this higher level of sustainability. There are incentive programs that we actually already have in place. It's one of the reasons we use the LEED Silver. Building and Safety already has a priority plan check processing in place. They've had in place since summer of 2006. And the Department of Water and Power also uses that as the threshold for projects that are pursuing that silver. The DWP has financial incentives available today for actually a lot of smaller projects as well, but it also, at the silver level, has a greater amount of financial incentives that it brings to the table. So we decided we wanted to build on what the city already had in place to streamline the process, and we're adding to those priority plan check processes by adding the expedited processing that planning has in place already, but expanding the kind of projects that can come into that expediting to include green building. And Bureau of Engineering has also said they will expedite projects that are also pursuing this LEED Silver certification. So that kind of in summary is the three components of the project. Walker's just going to tell us a bit more briefly about LEED.
So I just want to talk a little bit to this question of why LEED. Why have we decided to orient the program around this particular rating system? And so here's the main reasons, is that the City of Los Angeles has a track record of using LEED, the U.S. Green Building Council's Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design rating system, for its own buildings that goes back to 2001. And there are about 50 buildings in the City of LA that have either been built to the LEED standard or being designed to the LEED standard. So there's knowledge of the system among city staff, and then there's also knowledge of the system among people building buildings in Los Angeles. LEED has rating systems that apply to multiple building types. There's a LEED for new construction, for the retrofit of existing buildings, for commercial interiors, for schools. There's also a LEED for homes. There's a new standard also out there for neighborhood development. So what we can get through this one system are sort of rating systems that apply to all the different types of buildings that happen in the city of Los Angeles. So, so there's sort of a simplicity component there. We do feel like there is expertise in the region and awareness about LEED, and we have standards that have been formulated, looked at by national, international experts in the process of developing these standards and piloting them, voting on them before they're even eligible for use. So we're sort of drawing on this well of expertise that's already been added into the LEED rating system. There's also the argument to be made that other cities are using LEED as their benchmark or their metric. Pasadena uses LEED, asks projects, sort of larger projects, to also meet the intent of LEED. Long Beach is doing something similar. Santa Monica's grants are given based on your level of LEED certification. Then the LA Community College District is also committed to using LEED and asking for all of its projects that are being done through its bond program to meet the LEED certified level. Finally, in our 8 focus groups, we had a discussion of, what should be the metric, what should be our measurement of green, and predominantly LEED came up for many of these same reasons. And so this was sort of, at least listening just in that capacity as a person facilitating the meetings, that was the rating system that people talked about most, expressed most interest in using, and there were certainly no strong voices saying that we should look at anything else. So just to communicate our thinking on this particular topic to you.
And then we're just about done here. We've talked about timeline, but it's always helpful to kind of see it rolled out visually. So you see there on the left, obviously, the focus groups that occurred, the workshops, and here we are today, in January in front of you, and hopefully we'll be in the City Council in short order. And then, so starting with we're recommending that once the program is actually adopted by council, that immediately the green team would start to meet, the public education and outreach efforts would start to happen. Obviously, the standard of sustainable excellence would go into effect immediately, but it's the standard of sustainability, that requirement, that we're saying that should be held a little bit of time, I said until July, and then the January start dates for those 2 components of the program. So that's it in summary, and we'd like to...
Yeah, I'd like to take some public testimony. We have a number of cards here. I think we're up to about 14 now. Since we're not voting today, what I'd like to do is everybody who's here be given a chance to speak on the record. And obviously, if you want to come back, again, we'll publish the date extensively, and again, make it a special meeting if we have to, so that everybody can speak maybe for a couple of hours. Not themselves individually, but collectively. Yes. Anyway, so Mr. Clerk, if you would set for 2 minutes each. Why don't we have you guys can take a rest for a second.
Can we
Jim
go-
Clark
should we
and
go sit
Vanessa.
down?
Yeah, then we can free
Thanks.
the chairs up. I can get 4 people up here at a time. Jim Clark, Vanessa Rodriguez, and Veronica Perez Becker, and Ken Lewis. Okay, don't be shy, Jim.
Oh, I won't. He's not. You know me.
Oh, yeah. We know you. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, and good morning and Happy New Year. Madam Chair and members of the committee, thank you for the time. I am Jim Clark, Manager of Government Relations for the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles, representing about 25,000 managers and owners around the Southern California area. I have to be honest with you, I'm still educating myself on this issue, so I'm looking forward to and appreciate the fact that there will be a 2-hour study session on the issue itself. My concern, first off, is the fact that this proposal and the program includes renovations. As you know, it's very difficult for some of our members to do renovations, especially when their buildings are under rent control because of the cost. And I think that if this program includes renovation, just offers another disincentive for these folks that are in the older buildings to do the work that needs to be done. And we want to see our affordable housing stock saved. And so I truly want you to consider the fact, and I warn you that this program could be a disincentive for renovation of those buildings. Thank you.
That's one quick question.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you one question? Because I know in designing it, part of the size was precisely because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what percentage of the units that your folks own are in 50-unit buildings or above,
Well,
roughly?
as you know, most of our members own buildings that are probably below 20 units, but we do have some that are in,
So
that
there's
do
some,
have
but it's
larger
probably like
buildings.
a
Yeah, I mean,
5%
the majority are smaller, but we do have members that have buildings that are 50 units or more.
Okay.
And I appreciate the fact that number
that
was
was something
there,
that
but there
seems to
still are some older buildings that do contain more than 50 units.
Okay, thanks.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
on that note, I think it's important for us to have, I would imagine it's the planning department, could actually identify in the city of Los Angeles what our housing stock is and how many units do we have in complexes above 100 plus, 200 plus, between 50 and 100, 50 to 25 below, so that we can understand not only anecdotally or I think or, X number of people represented by association have units above or below. The facts remain what they are. Every single one of these projects are permitted, and those are documented with the city of Los Angeles, and that's within our purview to find out what our housing stock is and what categories they actually fall in.
How they break down.
For example, what if we end up realizing that over 1 million units in the city of over 500,000 units in the city of Los Angeles are in complexes less than 50, and then we realize that only 32,000 units are in complexes above 100 units. Then we know what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I think age, with my last 8 seconds, age and the date they were built is very important too.
Yeah,
Just
that
to
as
say
well.
whether they can under rent control or not.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Good morning, Vanessa Rodriguez, Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of the Chamber, first and foremost, we'd like to thank Council President Garcetti's office and the Planning Department for their availability through this process. Additionally, we'd also like to thank Councilwoman Jan Perry for agreeing to host an additional study session on this issue. We are, however, distressed that the draft ordinance was released late yesterday afternoon, leaving no time for a thorough review or sufficient time to solicit input from stakeholders directly affected by this proposal. At the November 15th Planning Commission hearing, the Chamber expressed support for developing a city-wide green building program. We also expressed our Housing and Land Use Committee's view that an effective program must include the following 4 criteria. 1, establish clear environmental goals and benchmarks. 2, make an expedited lead process work for developers. 3, ensure conformity between city and state building codes. And 4, provide standard specifics and city department uniformity. The Chamber appreciates the work that has been done to meet the criteria. We are very pleased with how the first 3 criteria look today. There is one component that must be modified. It is our understanding that the Green Building Team, comprised of only city staff, will have the power to initiate modifications to the green building codes either every 2 years or as needed. The industry cannot afford an uncertain business climate with frequently changing regulations. A successful green building program requires greater stability, and the private sector must be included on a team that will have a wide impact on jobs, construction, and housing throughout the region. This is absolutely essential. We believe that a thoughtful process which includes industry leaders, the business community, and other stakeholders will ensure the best possible program, one that will encourage responsible development, new housing, and a cleaner environment. We look forward to working with you to make this an effective program worthy of all of our support. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, council members. Veronica Perez-Becker from the Central City Association. We support green building and commend the City Council and Councilman Garcetti's office for taking the lead on this very important issue. And thank you, Councilmember Perry, for ensuring that this issue has the proper we have enough time at the hearing to properly discuss this. However, we have concerns about the quick time frame in which the significant policy change is moving forward. A successful policy should include time to adequately train builders and certifiers on these standards. The city's goal of July 1, which is less than 6 months away, for implementation does not leave enough time for necessary training, particularly with respect to low and mid-rise construction. As you know, LEED is currently conducting a pilot program for mid-rise construction that will not be completed until the fall after the city's stated goal for implementation. And the standards for low-rise construction were just released in December. In addition, a workable policy should be flexible, allowing the builder to choose their rating system and to be able to self-certify. There are more options than LEED, some of which may be more established and workable, and the city should take the time to thoughtfully explore these options with the stakeholders. Finally, more time needs to be spent creating a meaningful incentives package, and exceptions for historic buildings should be considered. Hence, we request that the implementation date be extended and that at a minimum, requirements for buildings 6 stories and under be phased in over a year after the initial implementation period. We request that you keep this item in committee to work out these and other issues before moving it forward to Plum. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Ken Lewis, right?
Yes. Ken Lewis, AC Martin Partners Architects, also a member of the LA Business Council Energy and Environment Committee. The city provides a benefit of public infrastructure that allows for the development of private property. The value of this infrastructure is incalculable. I believe it's the responsibility of private property owners and developers to treat this infrastructure as a limited resource and as a privilege. As a building professional, we deal with a broad range of codes and regulations, both county, city, national codes. Trying to keep abreast of these codes is a challenge. It's our belief that tying the city's standards to a national standard such as LEED would allow for us to work in the best way possible. There's an awful lot of greenwashing that goes on out there. There are an awful lot of quasi-standards promulgated by industry trade groups. We don't believe that LEED is such a standard. We believe that it's a peer-reviewed standard that is well accepted on a national basis. It's not controlled or funded by any particular industry or trade association. And I think that's a very important thing in terms of what the city ties its standards to. It's a baseline standard that's been adopted by the city of New York, Chicago, and other major cities. It's also been adopted by the state of California and the federal GSA. That as a baseline, in addition to a whole collection of local cities as well. That really gives not just design professionals, but the city staff and the community at large a significant knowledge resource to share knowledge and trade ideas. There's an awful lot of training associated and educational courses associated with it as well that allows the city staff, as well as the development community, the architectural and design community to come up to the same standard and work collectively.
Thank you very much. I'm going to call up the next 4 speakers. Krista Klein, Lori Tierney, Jim Stewart, and Holly Schroeder. And as I'm thinking about this, I also sit on the board of the AQMD, and we often have study sessions, and it is an enormously helpful tool in educating the public and pulling in, new people and new perspectives. And I think that I will ask the CLA to contact them on how they format that. And maybe instead of just your regular standard meeting, we can use maybe the first hour of it as a study session, and then the whatever subsequent time we set aside for more public input. Okay, thank you.
Good morning, council members. Krista Klein speaking on behalf of the mayor's office. Thank you for hearing this item today. As you know, one of the mayor's priorities is to make Los Angeles the greenest big city in the nation. This program takes us one step closer to achieving that goal. It's been a collaborative process beginning in autumn '06, articulated by the mayor at the Los Angeles Business Council's Mayoral Housing Summit during his keynote speech. At that time, he stated that he wanted green building the way all building is done in the city. Soon thereafter, the Business Council, tenacious as they are, followed up and began meeting with the mayor's office and some of the interested council offices. In the winter, Council President Garcetti, Council members Rosendahl, Weiss, and Reyes officially articulated their support by introducing a motion and dedicating their staff to the issue. So thank you for that. In addition, with the addition of the council offices of your office, Councilwoman Perry, and also Councilwoman Hahn, numerous city departments, including city planning, building and safety, water and power, CRA, housing, and the Public Works Bureaus of Sanitation and Engineering, our working group is off and running, and we have not stopped. We've held 8 public focus groups and 2 larger stakeholder meetings, in addition to countless meetings of city staff. Along the way, the input and guidance we received from the private sector has been invaluable. I'd like to thank everybody who's been involved, over 60 city staff members and hundreds of members of the public. The program is very important not only to the residents of the city, but to everyone who works or visits here as well. And it's important on a much broader scale. Green building directly impacts our resource consumption, namely water and energy, as well as our collective carbon footprint. In the dearth of leadership from the federal government on the issue of climate change, it is crucial that municipalities take action, and they are, utilizing their land use powers to proactively address the single biggest crisis facing all of us today. The program before you today is just one initiative among dozens citywide aimed at making Los Angeles a more sustainable and livable place. I say this not to diminish its importance, quite the contrary. It's an important and vital step towards building a greener LA. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Good morning. I'm Lori Tierney, Vice President of Brand Management and Strategic Markets for Unisource Solutions, Hayworth's most sustainable partner in the state of California. And I'm also here today in my capacity as a board member of the Los Angeles Business Council and co-chair of the LABC Sustainability Summit. I didn't hesitate to appear today when asked to talk to you about this important issue, because while many view this as a political issue, we view it as a human issue. I had the fortunate opportunity of being able to attend all of the LABC City of Los Angeles stakeholder meetings over the past year that culminated with the measure before you today. While there were often many differing points of view in those meetings on how to adopt sustainable development practices in the private sector of this city, there was always consensus among the diverse group at those meetings that doing nothing or not doing enough was not an option. The outcome of those stakeholder meetings was the drafted policy for your consideration today. We applaud the City of Los Angeles for embracing sustainability in their own building efforts, with the more than 40 lead projects in the pipeline and the many that have been completed. On a personal note, the major manufacturer that I work with, Unisource Solutions, partners with is the most sustainable, adaptable workspace provider in the world, and it's a company called Hayworth. They built the first LEED pilot CI space in the city more than 3 years ago, when LEED for CI was in its infancy. At that time, the argument for building sustainable, adaptable spaces was challenging when proposed against conventional construction methodology. Plain and simple, it cost more and people hesitated. No one wanted to do it. Today, for the most part, this type of construction is first cost competitive, and the long-term benefits to the triple bottom line, people, planet, and profits, are attainable. In closing, the founder of Hayworth, G.W. Hayworth, the most humble of men, once responded to a question on why the early 80s he chose to lead his company on a sustainable path, and his answer was quite simply, because it's the right thing to do. No truer words can be spoken today. Thank you for your time this morning and your individual and collective abilities to make a difference in the quality of our life in the city of LA.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Stewart, representing the 50,000 members of the Sierra Club in Los Angeles County. It's a pleasure to be here. I mean, this is it, right? We're beginning the green building program that LA City absolutely needs. as Krista was saying, this is our objective, right? To be the most, the greenest big city in the country. Of course, we got this little problem, right? San Francisco is proposing a threshold of 25,000 square feet and 25 units. So as soon as they're adopted, and we're here way behind at 50,000, we're not the greenest big city. So I urge you guys.
San Francisco's not a big city.
You're right. It's a small city. So but anyway, I urge you guys to send this back to the fabulous Claire Bowen and the other staff people and say, we got to be able to beat San Francisco, okay? And this business of self-certification, this isn't going to work. I mean, we got to have third-party verification. We got to have something like a blower test. We got to have these ducts tested. I mean, it just doesn't work. I mean, I don't know if you know all the horror stories about these builders that put in these heating ducts and they have huge leaks and, it's very inefficient. And this business of delaying or ignoring renovations, I mean, this is crucial because who's paying those utility bills? The tenants, right? I mean, these poor tenants who are in these rent-controlled buildings are being socked with these huge utility bills because they're old, they're inefficient, they're leaky, and it's not right.
Thank you. Next speaker. Are you Holly?
I am.
Okay, great.
Holly Schroeder with the Building Industry Association. Thank you for the chance to comment. This is a significant change in how building development will occur in LA, and so as you deliberate this, I offer a couple of points. First is the reference standard that you use, currently proposed as the lead by the U.S. Green Building Council. That's a non-governmental entity, and there's lots of standards out there, and whichever one you use, I hope that through the study session or through other mechanisms that you explore the consequences and the specifics of what is in those standards, because it is a change to our zoning and building codes that is implied in that, and we need to make sure that we understand the consequences for projects in the city and in your districts. Timing is an issue. This is a big change, needs to be thoughtfully implemented. July 1's right around the corner. The amendments help with the under 7 stories. Those projects would use the Lead for Homes standard, which was just adopted last month. The training doesn't exist, so the architects and the subs and the builders can't get the training on that. We shouldn't have a program that we can't get trained on and be ready to do. We want this to be smooth. And then the third point I want to make, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the scope of it a little bit. If I didn't comment on the singular focus on new construction, all apologies to my colleagues from the Apartment Association. I think we need meaningful incentives to talk about remodeling and rehabilitation, not mandates, but meaningful incentives. If we want to really reduce energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions, which is what the staff report says we need to do, we must focus on some renovations and have some incentives for that. Right now, new homes are 1% of construction of the stock, and it's the most energy efficient stock that there is. If every home in the United States was built to California energy codes, the U.S. would be Kyoto compliant. We have to think beyond just new construction. We have to go beyond that. We need to use incentives in order to really try to get everyone engaged in this.
Hold our time for a second, and when we have our study session, if you can give this some thought. I just mentioned to Eric that I've been working on a project now assembling the public money portion for the housing to be built on what I hope to be a grocery store, and it's 85 units, so immediately this goes into effect. I'm a dead woman walking right there, and my project's over with after we spent 3 years trying to assemble the money to just do the housing part. And so if you can think about that, especially on the renovations and improvements, and come with some ideas, whether it's in tax relief, some sort of incentive, grants. Well, but see, that's just like the industrial land use policy, where they're going to impose this policy on us, and then we're going to have to spend the rest of our lives Prop 245ing things too. I mean,
just exempt current projects that are at a certain.
Well, but then when you represent an area like mine, and probably to yours to a certain extent, where you have high concentrations of areas that still need low-income housing, which is always difficult to build and always requires huge subsidies. So now this is a disincentive for us to build anything over 50 units, and then, we don't know whether that's going to ever pencil out anyway. I mean, the reason we reached 85 units is because that's what made it pencil out, so that we could be competitive in terms of getting money from the state. So if you give that some thought, I would really appreciate, some input on that, because, we're going to need some help.
Absolutely. Oh.
Yeah, Mr. Cardenas.
Excuse me, hold her time, please. You represent the BIA. The meetings that have been talked about quite a bit, about what's been going on over the last year or so, and some meetings, has the BIA had a representative there?
We have participated in many of the focus groups and had discussions. I would say that I've expressed concerns that those meetings have not been fully adequately noticed. There have been a bunch of people there. It's a lot of the same characters, including myself, at a lot of those meetings. So we have participated. We've actually been working with the city. We want to continue to do so to have this program be successful. Implementation is going to be key. This is a big change, and we really need to think it through, have it all worked out so that it can be something be successful.
Who chairs these meetings, or who calls these meetings, as far as you can tell?
Claire Bowen. That's who I get the notices from.
And she's from?
From City Planning Department. Apologize, yes.
Okay. So it's basically a meeting pulled together by the City Planning Department?
That's my observation, is that the City Planning Department has been the lead agency on this project.
Thank you.
Mr. Allerton.
I just, could you envision an incremental program that would take us even further than what is recommended, that would solidify our end result to what the Sierra Club has advocated, something better than San Francisco, which I would support, but may do it over a period of time, and where this might be the starting threshold, or maybe even less, but at a given point in time, like 10 years down the road, we get to 20,000 square feet or something like that.
I think that we can talk about those different ideas.
I know we can talk about it.
And I think there are. We are not opposed to green building. We are not opposed to a green building program, and I've said this to members of council and the planning department. We are not opposed to a mandate in and of itself, but we want, which is somewhat unprecedented, I must say, we do want a program that is thoughtful, that is implementable, that really works, that can be successful, that doesn't create further delays in the approval process, that manages the costs, because there are additional costs to this. And so we would definitely think there's a way that you could stage that, have that. I definitely would be honored. I can talk for hours on this, unfortunately, so we could do that.
I just want to inform my colleagues. When I was on the city council, there's a big to-do about a gas-powered leaf blower ordinance. The advocates were advocating a method that was proposed by one of my colleagues. And the primary opponents were the gardeners and the leaf blower companies, as you might imagine. I worked with them to come in with a proposal that over a period of 5 years would have incrementally taken us to a complete ban on gas-powered leaf blowers. But in the first year, it did less than what my colleague was proposing. The council, but it was more in terms of reducing the emissions in the short term. In the long term, it didn't include a permanent elimination of gas-powered leaf blowers.
At AQMD, we do these outreach events where basically we give them away.
But here's my point. Yeah. Here's my point. The council voted to support my colleague's proposal, as opposed to the total ban after 5 years, which was supported by the gardeners and the leaf blower manufacturers. We were sued. It went to the courts, and the courts threw it out. And we've never implemented any leaf blower ordinance since. My point is that we lose opportunities quite often by trying to get someplace fast, but not considering getting someplace further, maybe taking a little bit longer, and giving us an opportunity to learn by incrementally implementing something. Because we get into these battles on how far we can go right now trying to compete with San Francisco, when in fact we have a much more complex system to deal with. Okay. So I would hope that we would open the doors to incrementally, to declaring that in 5 or 10 years we're going to get way further than that, but that we may have to start it with a more conservative program going in.
Well, that's why I want to have a study session. So today's not the end of it. We got the report last night. We're not going to vote on this today. And I think a study session would be enormously helpful. And I don't feel a need to compete with other cities because, maybe that's like a guy thing or something. I just want to get this right and to be able to build and to rebuild. Works. Yeah, be able to build South LA. I mean, I have a neighborhood city hall we're building, and we only got $12 million. And I had to say to engineering, get me as much leads as you can with that much money. It's only a 9,000 square foot building, and believe me, we're doing things like putting jeans in as insulation in the walls, cutting where we can, but, some of it is a limitation of how much public money we can assemble, and it's frustrating. So your 8 seconds.
I think we made the points again. We want to be at the table. We've been working with them. We'd like to continue to work with you to have a program that really can be successful over time. Thank you.
Okay, Brian Parker, Bill Jones, Dr. Lance Williams, and Stephanie Taylor. Okay, let's go.
Hi, my name is Brian Parker. I'm the Government Relations Manager for Build It Green. We're a statewide professional organization promoting green building. We have a diverse membership, public agency people, realtors, builders, really diverse. We have an alternative green rating system called Green Point Rating that we view as much more accessible to a wide range of residential builders. Many fewer prerequisites and kind of gives you an on-ramp to green building. Might be something the city wants to look at. I would like to we want to come here and congratulate the city for what is before you today. We think you should move forward with it for the types of building classes it applies to. It makes sense. The lead-based standards you're setting are very ambitious, especially in the residential area. We're focused 100% on the residential area, and most of our members are residential builders. Yet, while LEED standards make sense for larger projects, it may not be able to be applied to the smaller projects that comprise most of the city's housing production. Our perspective from being engaged with the residential housing sector is that the LA standards of sustainability are very aggressive and set a very high bar for these projects. Firms will need to rise to the challenge. As you consider expanding the program in the future, we would encourage the city to take a look at Green Point Rated. There's over 35 jurisdictions in the state that are using it. We had a major announcement yesterday. This is a big breakthrough for us because we've never really been friendly with the BIA, but the 14-county BIA region in the San Francisco area has endorsed our program and are going to go out with us to encourage mandatory green building programs in the region that are consistent, that their members can learn to build to. Lastly, education is very important to this whole process, and we have been working with SoCal Gas and Southern California Edison to put together an education process. They're interested in coming to the table with city staff. We need to train the small-time builders besides the big-time builders, because ultimately the best way to get at that 90% is to get into the hearts and minds of builders. There's a lot of interest in it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Alarcon will
Very quickly, what is the average cost of housing in San Francisco?
High. Outrageous.
What is it?
Maybe 700,000 to $1 million, somewhere in that range.
Average. What is the average cost of housing in Los Angeles?
Less.
Does anybody know what that?
Yeah, it's about 500,000.
500?
Yeah, it all depends, right?
500,000 was yesterday's figure. Today it's 450.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, I'm Bill Jones with Enterprise, and although we have our own green building standards nationally, we do support the ordinance before you. We've been doing one shade of green or another since 2001. We started out with the ACA rehab program in South Los Angeles. We have a Solar Neighbors program where we donate units to low-income homeowners. We support green bags and green training so that if anyone is interested, we do have that at least once a month. We do partner with Green Building and with Walker here. We have a major grant with the Southern California AQMD to install photovoltaics on our townhomes. We have a green grant program in the county. Gloria Molina is installing photovoltaics on low-income households. We're building a green village in the Hyde Park area of Los Angeles where we'll have 8 LEED Silver single-family homes for sale. And my only concern is that we do projects from 2 to 20 units for affordable and workforce housing. We want to make sure that we get a part of the carrot that's being offered to those at 50 or more. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Just if I can, real quick, because I have to go start the council meeting, and I've just been here to listen, but having worked quite a bit on this, I want to thank everybody. This has been an extraordinary coalition, extraordinary input, and I want to thank city staff. I, too, do not want to be voting on this since we got the report yesterday, and I think it's important for people on all sides of this issue to read the report, make sure we have the time, so I appreciate the chair's move to make sure that we'll have that time to be able to discuss after we've read it and digested each paragraph. That said, I also want to thank the members of the business community that were a part of this and the environmental community. As everybody said here, there's nobody actually with different goals. Everybody said we're for green building, and I think the green community is for profit and for our market working, and that's a very, very important thing. Also, to what Councilmember Alarcon said, this is exactly that. It is not going for the high bar. It's something that I think is quite reasonable in between, but there probably are some additional suggestions and improvements that we can add as we move this forward. That said, we have put our money where our mouth is. The city has done this first with our own buildings, and we've proved that it works. I want to thank Los Angeles Building Council and the Chamber and BIA and CCA for their good input as well. And lastly, for all the affordable folks who have talked about it, know right now there's money on the table sitting there that not enough affordable housing builders are using, that the DWP put into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund that is specifically for green building. It's been there now for 3 years for green building. It's over, I think, 20 million. It was two chunks of 10 million that were put in there. So those carrots are there right now, and we hope you take advantage of them. Thanks.
Okay, we'll see you downstairs. Thank you. Next speaker.
Yeah, sure. Good morning, council members. Greetings on this natal day of Dr. Martin Luther King. I'm Dr. Lance Williams, Executive Director of USGBCLA. USGBCLA fully supports the City Planning Department Green Building Initiative in the form recommended by the Planning Commission. We fully appreciate the validation of LEED that such an affirmative position represents. We fully understand it's a political process. Many elements must be considered along the way. But LEED is not code, and it's not intended to be a building code. Builders have flexibility in how they approach attaining certification. Perhaps the best characterization of what this initiative will represent were the comments made by Jen Perry last Friday morning at the LA Business Council breakfast honoring Mary Nichols, in which she stated how important it was for Los Angeles to take a proactive approach to all ordinances that impact the quality of life of LA's residents. USGBCLA, which received the 2007 National Award for Advocacy amongst all the USGBC chapters in the United States, wholeheartedly concurs with Council Member Perry's position as well as many of the ideas expressed this morning. We'll continue to help the great city to take its place as the leader amongst those municipalities enacting courageous, aggressive green building ordinances.
Thank you very much. You want to ask some questions? Okay. Yeah, Mr. Alarcon wants to say something before he departs to council too.
Yeah, first of all, it's sort of, people ask me all the time, what's it like coming back to city council? And I have to tell you that in this particular case, this is one of the most exciting things to see. So sort of taking a snapshot of where I was when I left the city council in the 90s and coming back now, because the first green building, the first sustainable building built in the city of Los Angeles was the Lakeview Terrace Library, when the community and I worked to require sustainable standards, and Bill Holland, the city's architect, was opposed initially to the concept and became a strong advocate for sustainability. So it is an extreme pleasure for me to come back and see so many of my colleagues advocating green building standards. But in a nutshell, number one, I don't know that LEED standard is the best standard. Given the complexity and size of Los Angeles, it seems to me that we can create a better standard for ourselves, not to impose on anybody else, but I think that we can go beyond LEED and come up with standards that expand the opportunities to get to greenability as quickly as possible, but also that are flexible and provide greater opportunities, not less, to the building community to accomplish that goal. And secondly, I want to reiterate the need to create an incremental approach so that we're continuing to move forward with the best opportunities to green Los Angeles as possible, not just do it as a snapshot, but incrementally better. And finally, I also want to thank not just my colleagues, but all the people who are participating in this. And, if we do this without measuring the economic impact, then we are only fools, because we will take steps backwards instead of going forward at all. And so let's understand that I think Los Angeles has great potential to move forward on this item. I will support the strongest measure that gets to City Council, and I believe that it will be good for business in the short term, and not just in the long term.
Councilwoman Perry, I have 40 seconds. I just wanted to say hello to former Senator Alarcon, who I worked with at the state level on the initiative to end poverty in California. And this is certainly in USGBC's interest to work with persons like yourself to extend opportunity through green building and sustainability strategies to the widest community possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Stephanie Taylor?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Good morning. I'm Stephanie Taylor. I'm here representing Green LA. Green LA is a leading environmental coalition of over 60 environmental and environmental justice organizations. Green LA supports the Green Building Program because we believe the Planning Department is the best venue to pursue green building incentives and to lead innovations in development that will improve the environment and the health of residents. And 3, we believe that the Green Building Program will provide financial benefits to both industry and the city. Green LA is especially supportive of the Green Building team. And the comprehensive nature of the Green Building Program. We do have 2 requests. One, that 2 public positions are added to the Green Building team, and to ensure adequate staffing, especially at building and safety and other departments, to ensure their technical assistance is provided. And lastly, the Green Building Program is a great start. It's an important part of a comprehensive strategy for LA to reduce global warming. If Los Angeles is to meet its ambitious global warming goals, it will be necessary to coordinate between the city and the private sector, which is exemplified in the Green Building Program.
Thank you very much. The last 3 speakers will be Michelle, I think it's Guerrerian, Lori Kay, and Lee Wallach.
Whoever gets here first speaks first.
Okay, Lee Wallach's here. Start talking
You people
Lee
in a
Wallach
hurry?
right now.
In a hurry or something?
Speak, Lee.
Lee Wallach with Kojal, and with a different hat this time than you see me many times, with as a member of the LA Business Council. And you don't see this, but I own a few businesses. I actually develop some property as well as my own green home as we speak. So I know about these issues. I know about this process. This is a time for bold action. Not for too much deliberation. We have actually had that. The business community, your staff has been amazing. If the religious community believed in cloning, we would say clone Claire, and some of the rest of the staff that have been involved in this effort. It really has been amazing. It has been transparent, it has been realistic, and the proposal you have in front of you is very practical. I hate to quote, my friend Jim Stewart, but I would love to see us go forward, but this is the appropriate first step. In fact, it's such an appropriate first step that we have members from the State of Israel who are here looking at these issues and here listening in the audience today. This has been an incredible process, which I have explained to them with all stakeholders at the table or the ability to be at the table. These are moral issues and economic issues. We have to move forward right now. I thank you. I thank the staff for looking at this, and I urge you to move forward with this very quickly. We don't have time to deliberate further. We can tweak this as it moves forward, but we have the opportunity to be bold, and that's what this city is all about. God knows I have no problem coming up to this community, to this group of people, I have in the past, and telling you what I might not like about something. I'm having a hard time finding that in this proposal. I would encourage you in the future to add a nonprofit building component whenever you're talking about affordable housing or other issues. But right now, this is the best step. Your staff has taken it, and I urge you to support them.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I know we have council to go to, but real quick, what did you mean by the not-for-profit component? What did you mean by that?
The not-for-profit community, when you're either doing a rehab or your building, has an incredibly difficult time raising the additional funds in order to meet some of the needs that could be very, very beneficial and that the Green Program outlines. And I'm not just talking solar, though that could be of great assistance. We just had the mayor over at Sinai Temple, and actually a number of months ago. He told the whole conservative movement of rabbis and directors that that facility, an audit of that facility showed that they could save $40,000 a year just in energy costs, just lighting, retrofits. It's very difficult for them to find those dollars. It's very difficult for nonprofits, and I would say that in addition to some of the monies we set aside for the affordable housing, community, that the nonprofit community could use some assistance. And I'm not talking the Gettys and the music centers. I'm talking, the nonprofits that are out there struggling to meet the needs of our community.
So Lee, what you're describing is, like you said, I don't think the Getty needs breaks. I mean, with all due respect, they do wonderful work, but they're sitting on a few $1 billion. But yet you have maybe a not-for-profit that does housing. They're pretty darn good at putting programs, and maybe they're learning how to be better property owners, et cetera. And they may be living month to month, year to year, and those not-for-profits should be considered for some support so they can have a better facility, right?
Right, for their schools as well as their affordable housing, for all of their centers.
That being the case, are you recommending that if we were to have a not-for-profit component of assistance, that they would have to qualify? In other words, not just because they're a not-for-profit, but they have to show that with that assistance, it will make the difference between them being able to do it or not?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Got 1 second.
It'll be the first time I've given up time.
Great. All right. Next speaker, and then we'll finish with you. Okay.
Good morning. My name is Lori Kay, and I'm with Environmental Defense. We're a national nonprofit organization. I would like to speak in support of the green building policy. I think it's a great first step. And I think it's part of a broader strategy looking at building a green economy for the city of Los Angeles. Green building is an integral part of creating a vibrant green economy for the city of Los Angeles. It can create a wide range of jobs, including high tech to low tech, that can service a broad range of populations. And we've seen a growing excitement throughout the city in the last 2 years in trying to forge forward with this green economy and these new jobs, and as well as in the nonprofit community through groups like the Apollo Alliance, as well as Green Los Angeles. And I think that you should approve this policy as a part of looking forward and seeing green building as one component of that policy, both in terms of jobs that can be created in the actual maintenance of these buildings, as well as jobs that can be created in the manufacturing of the components that go into those buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. Final speaker.
Morning. How are you? Happy to be here today. I'm representing the Los Angeles Business Council. In July 2006, members of the business community and city family began a productive dialogue about how to encourage and promote sustainable development in LA. The city responded by proposing new policies and procedures that will be implemented over the course of the next 2 to 4 years. As a vital participant in this dialogue, the LABC supports the proposed ordinance as it reflects adherence to the principles outlined in the city's sustainability goals while staying respectful to developer hardships. I view the said recommendations as practical and realistic, the threshold as reasonable, and concur with my colleague Ken Lewis that a LEED-like program is necessary to maintain uniformity in Los Angeles. We also applaud City Department in accommodating the concerns of the developmental residential community as reflected in the recent amendments. To that end, we commend the city family, including the Planning Department, the Department of Water and Power, Department of Building and Safety, the Mayor's Office, and all of these council offices present in convening and participating in this open dialogue. The process by which we've come here today has been unbelievably transparent and reflective. We've been invested since day one. This is July 2006 I speak of. And you guys have been absolutely wonderful and open, and each office has been open in receiving us and hearing our concerns, our comments, and our praises, and we appreciate that. Again, the city department, city family has worked in an unprecedented capacity to formulate this program with an agenda that has included a sensible timeline, reasonable goals, and absolutely transparent stakeholder meetings. This notion acts as a future incentive alone, and it shows a willingness to streamline this program. The LABC believes that this program represents a tidal change in the way we alter future development in this city. To that end, we are confident that this new ordinance will assist in Los Angeles becoming the cleanest and the greenest big city in Los Angeles. Thank you very much.
Mr. Cardenas.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out, Madam Chair, I was keeping track, and on average, the presenters preserved about 10 to 20% of the time allotted. So thank you for also speaking in the spirit of conservation.
Serving that energy. But that would be the
I can't say that for the members.
Of carbon monoxide or something.
I've never left a minute before in my
Especially
life.
Lee. Thank you, Lee, especially. Yes, that's right. All right. You're our final speaker. So again, let me just re-announce that I will ask the CLA, the city clerk, to work with my staff to set up this study session, which will be a committee meeting, but it will be something on the format of what we do at AQMD so that we can have more substantive, more in-depth opportunity to not have to rush through a presentation. I actually, as I was sitting here, have thought of a couple of ideas of some folks that I might want to invite to talk about new construction and what they have done to, the problems they encountered with the city and the pluses and the minuses. So I will ask them to find a date where we can devote a good chunk of time without having to rush. Mr. Cardenas.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Madam Chair that if the appropriate person from the planning department is not here at this time, if they could report to you, Madam Chair, in your office as to how long it would take for us to get the breakdown of our existing permitted units in the city and how they break down as far as what category they fall in, 25 units or less, 50 units or less, 100 units or less, et cetera, all the way up. So we can
that has
get
a
good-
huge impact on you, me, and I'm sure, because for those of us who have been building low-income housing in our districts, as opposed to some districts where they not only don't build it, they oppose it. This has a huge impact on our ability to be able to continue to do that. So I think that is a great suggestion, and I want to make sure that that person is there to give us that report too.
Okay.
Okay, so this item is, we'll be noticing the study session. Thank you, everybody. Now, this is the part of the meeting where we have public comment for items that are not on the agenda. So anybody who wishes to make a public comment can come forward at this time. Otherwise, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Sure, I'll see you guys downstairs.